I can say, which is not against the parampara or in line with all the teachings of Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So this chapter is from Canto 4, which is chapter 21. So many of our wonderful elevated devotees have been taking classes continuously. So in continuation of that, I am attempting to take the 21st chapter. So the chapter is mentioned as in section by Maharaj Prithu. So as a quick recap, we have seen just contents of what I'm attempting to say today. It is one is a recap, then the glorious rule of Maharaj Prithu, then what is all about it true leadership, the learnings from the rule of Maharaj, then how glorification of devotees is happening, that is one part, and how is the humility shown by a true Vaishnava in the form of Maharaj Prithu, that we understand. What is the purpose of human life actually? Then how Maharaj Prithu was working as an ideal administrator, being a king of the country, how he could administer in a most ideal way. Then we also understand Lord is not away from the devotees at any point in time. He's always in the company of devotees. And then finally, a few takes away based on the teachings of Prithu Maharaj. So these are the things I'll quickly cover. Short recap. We know that this particular canto is progressing very well. So beginning from the retirement life of King Anga. King Anga was a very elevated personality and a great ruler. However, he got a son who was not at all in line with the parampara system or following any of the principles of the basic human life. So because of these difficulties in life, King Anga decided to retire from his worldly responsibilities, and he moved away to the forest, and then he completely dedicated lives to glorify and in bhakti of the Lord. And then after that, although it was not at all appropriate, but all the Brahmana decide that Vena is being installed as the king of the country because there is no other person. Although he was very abominable and very bad in nature, the Brahmana still decided that somebody should be there in the position of king, because without a king, the world or the country will become completely in anarchy. So Vena takes over, and unfortunately, he is misruling the country. And then eventually the Brahmanas are to curse him, and then he finishes or he dies. And then from the body of Anga, they do churning of the body. And then from the churning of the body, finally, Prithu Maharaj appears. And Prithu Maharaj is known as a Shaktiyavash avatar, or especially powerful incarnation of the Lord. And as we all know, Lord appears in this material world whenever there is a decline of dharma, and then when adharma becomes prominent. So here again, to protect the world from all the adharma activity which was happening, Lord again appeared with in the form of Maharaj Prithu. And then because of the very abominable rule of Vena, we understood that Mother Earth was withholding the grains and whatever outputs which you need to come out from Mother. So in spite of continuous efforts, when Mother Earth refused to give grains and other necessary things for sustaining life, Maharaj Prithu becomes angry, and he chastises Mother Earth. And then finally Mother Earth understands, and then she gives in, and then she becomes ready to give whatever is required. And here it is mentioned that Prithu Maharaj, how he was milking or taking out everything from the earth, just like milking a cow, only on the basis of need or as per regulations. So there was prosperity everywhere, and with the rule of Maharaj Prithu, dharma was also properly established in the country again. So these are the things we saw in the last few classes. And in the last class, we understood from Shangmani Prabhu about Maharaj Prithu's further activities. Earlier, we heard about he decided to do 100 Ashwamedha Yajnas, and then out of which 99 was completed very gloriously. And then finally, the 100th Ashwamedha Yajna he decides to do. And like we know, in many cases, again, Lord Indra becomes very uncomfortable with the situation. because he thought that probably with the completing of 100 Ashwamedha Yajna, Prithu Maharaj might take up his throne. So he comes over and tries to steal the sacrifice horse, and Maharaj Prithu sends his son to protect the horse. And in that case, because of fear or whatever, Indra leaves the horse and goes, but then he continues his activity. He is not allowing allowing the yajna to get completed. And here Maharaj Prithu finally gets unhappy with the situation, and he decides that he will go ahead and kill Indra, because that is the right of a king, to act against the plunderers. However, when he proceeds to kill Indra gets scared and he runs away. And then there, Lord Brahma appears, a true Vaishnava comes there, and then he instructs Prithu Maharaj not to kill Indra. And then Prithu Maharaj, in spite of all these endeavors or the efforts to do so many Ashwamedha Yajnas, where he had already completed 99 of them, the 100th one completing would have been a very glorious result. However, immediately on the instruction of Lord Brahma, he decides to stop the yajna. And then because of that, so many auspiciousness happened there. And Lord Vishnu himself appeared in the sacrificial arena, and then the Lord becomes extremely happy with Prithu Maharaj, because on the instruction of Vaishnavas, or as per the heart of the Lord, he decides to stop the yajna, although it would have given him a lot of glories. And then here, one of the learnings we understood from Prabhuji's class was giving pleasure to the Supreme Lord and the Vaishnavas is the highest dharma all the time. And Prithu Maharaj followed that fully. And Lord was very, very, very pleased with Prithu Maharaj. And then we saw the prayers of Prithu Maharaj. And then we also understood that generally the world is running after, some of these four activities: dharma, artha, kama, moksha. In most of the cases today, we can see that many of us probably, or persons like me, run after, artha or kama or whatever, and we even forget dharma and moksha. But then generally our principles or religious principles talk about following dharma, and following dharma earn whatever money or artha you want to do, and using that money you fulfill your desires. And then finally, when you're fed up with everything, you try to move or look forward for moksha. And Prabhu very clearly mentioned that this is not the position or the mood of a pure devotee. The pure devotee never aspires for anything from the Lord, and his aspiration is only devotional service. So these are few of the points we understood, and then we move forward to the class today. So this chapter, 21st chapter, has 52 slokas in total. So it can be broadly divided into three areas. The first verses from 1 to 8, it talks about the return of King Prithu after these activities we saw before, and he comes back to the capital city. And then the citizens are so happy to see Prithu Maharaj coming back, and he is being given a very, very warm welcome. And it is mentioned very beautifully in this chapter how the palace was decorated very beautifully, how different places in the city where he was moving in were decorated extremely nicely with many paraphernalia, showing that how happy his people were to welcome him. And in spite of giving him such a warm and a big welcome, his nature was modesty. So he behaved or he accepted the honors with modesty, or he never showed that he is really worth of getting any. So he had a lot of humility in accepting that. So that is very much emphasized in these verses. Then further, we understand questions by Vidura to Maitreya Maharshi, since that discussion is going on. So here Vidura is asking Sage Maitreya to describe much more in detail about the glorious activities of Maharaj Prithu, where he was already established as a great ruler. So it is mentioned that he was established as a great ruler by the sages or the Brahmanas, and also empowered by the Lord himself. So we understand that he had all the blessings. So that means he had the blessings of Vaishnavas on one side, and because of that, he was also being blessed by Lord Vishnu or empowered by the Lord himself. So these few things we understand from these slokas. And finally, towards the slokas from 14 to 52, these are the teachings of Maharaj Prithu, where he's addressing his people of the country, and then giving them instructions, but in a very, very humble way. It is extremely touching how Maharaj Prithu talks to his people of the country. Although he is the Shaktiyavesh avatar of Lord himself, but the humility is extremely visible. So from this all we can very easily understand that the quality of humility is coming directly from the Lord himself, because in all the activities of the Lord, even if he's sitting in his original position as Lord Krishna or Vishnu, we have many learnings how actually on in reality Lord behaves with absolute humility with all the people around. So Maharaj Prithu also kind of displayed the same quality. So further dividing these slokas, the first part of 14 to slokas from 14 to 21, appearance of the king and his address to the assembly. So here Prithu Maharaj comes in front of the large assembly of the people, and he's starting his starting his address to the assembly. And further 22 to 26 slokas, he is giving various instructions. Maharaj Prithu is giving various instructions to the citizens, emphasizing the duties of a king, or he is making them understand for their knowledge what are the real duties of a king. Then also the importance of Varnashram Dharma, or the social order, without which there is no progress possible. And then finally, he's also talking about the duties of citizens to protect the king. So this is one very interesting thing to know here. So the way king has a duty to protect the people or the citizens of the country, in the same way the citizens also have the responsibility to protect the king. So protect the king. So this is always a how to say it, a work of togetherness or give and take. So this is very clearly mentioned by Prithu Maharaj again. Then finally, he talks about the worship of the Supreme Lord, how important the worship of the Supreme Lord is in absolute devotion or bhakti. That is mentioned. And then finally, he's also talking about the most important thing of serving the Brahmanas and the Vaishnavas. So it's a very, how to say it, elevated and beautiful part of Srimad Bhagavatam. And towards the end of this chapter, we see that the audiences or various people assembled there to listen to the king becomes very happy. That includes the demigods, Vaishnavas or sages, and of course the citizens of the country. So they all really become happy listening to the king, his instructions, and then they kind of confirm that he is indeed a great representative of Lord. So this is understood by everybody. So in these interactions, we can see when the king of the country is so much elevated, how the praja also, or the citizens also respond in the equal way, and then how it can even impact elevated personalities, Vaishnavas, demigods, etc. So these are all learnings which we take from this chapter. Moving ahead. So the glorious rule of Prithu Maharaj, how he was ruling the country. So Prithu, as we already understood, he established his kingdom in a perfect order because he was ruling as per the instructions of the Vaishnavas or the Brahmanas, and because of that, he had a full support or full empowerment from the Lord himself that he did. So the citizens became very happy. And in fact, they said and they believed that he was even greater than the demigods himself. In reality, also that is true because he is a avatar of the Lord himself. He is definitely greater than the demigods. But in the position as a king, the persons or the citizens of the country, they understood that he is even much better and capable than a demigod or demigods themselves. So this was the opinion or the understanding of his citizens. So now, in the chapter, as we saw, he's addressing the citizens. He's also taking effort to emphasize the importance of devotional service, or when people leave or citizens leave in the country, how it is important to ensure that they are always in the worship of the Lord. So this is actually the sole purpose of his addressing the citizens. So few takeaways from this understanding is true leadership. When if you are really a leader, if anybody is a leader, it is not about exploitation because this discussion is coming into picture considering today's world. everywhere we see people coming onto the leadership positions in this world are trying to exploit either the nature or the people or the living entities in different ways. But Prithu Maharaj here, through his exemplary life, he shows that it is not at all about exploitation, but it is taking the responsibility for all the people. And here we can see Srila Prabhupada emphasized many of these points. And one thing he has mentioned in various places is the duty of a king is to see that the citizens advance in Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada is probably the first person in the material world, at least to the extent we understand, who emphasized that without worship or without full focus on Krishna consciousness, it is not possible to improve this world in any way. So this point, Srila Prabhupada emphasized in many ways. And in some point, it is mentioned that he was even planning to train people to become the president of America, because generally we see that whoever is becoming the president or the head of this country, opulent country, the whole world tend to follow that. And Prabhupada believed that if a Krishna conscious person comes to the top of this position, then the whole world possibly will become Krishna conscious. Anyway, that didn't happen, but that was the mood Prabhupada had. So this understanding is very much there. Continuing, one of the slokas I would like to highlight here is this one. I'll just try to read it. Ya uddharet karmam raja praja dharmeshwa ashikshavan prajnanam shamalam bhungde bhagam cha swam jahadisa. So any king who does not teach his citizens about their respective duties in terms of varnashrama, but who simply exacts tolls and taxes from them, is liable to suffer for the impious activities which have been performed by the citizens. In addition to such degradation, the king also loses his own fortune. So again, the same thing is emphasized here. Generally, looking into the ruling of our country or in the world today, most of the governments are only focusing on ensuring that the taxes are collected properly. And we know that the tolls are there everywhere in various forms. The money is collected, and there is no responsibility today where they try to give it back. If there are smart people, they try to extract it from the government in various ways, in business or other things. But however, here in this sloka, it is mentioned that a king who is going to do that, it is not going to help both the citizens or the king himself, because the king will become degraded and eventually the king will lose the fortune. And this we can see in this material world again and again. Many cases we can see many rulers ruling our country in many ways and getting extinct. And this we also see among many so-called business leaders, who suddenly lose and then vanish from this world, and they lose their fortune, etc., etc. So leadership means accountability before the God. So the word accountability is very interesting in today's world, because in the corporate world, generally this word is used quite a lot, and one should be accountable for his activity, etc. But generally, the meaning of accountability in the corporate world or in the general sense in this world is about satisfying one's boss, So this is what I have seen in all the corporates. If a person working there becomes accountable towards the boss, whether the person does abominable activities, etc., it is absolutely all right. And then, the organization or the situation around protects him. That's a general understanding we have everywhere. However, when here we say somebody is accountable in front of God, that means this is absolute accountability, because the Lord is sitting in the heart as in the presence of Lord is very much in our heart. So we will not be able to cheat the Lord. So whatever we feel or whatever way we behave, He will be able to understand, and we have to be completely bare and open in front of the Lord. Unlike in this material world where we can have many double standards in terms of what we call as accountability. And then the other point is the ruler or the leader of the country should be there to ensure that the citizens are advancing in spirituality. So this is another aspect which has completely gone out of this world today, and because of that the world is suffering in a great way. Srila Prabhupada emphasized many points here in this context. Government should not be secular in the sense of godliness. godlessness. So Srila Prabhupada always mentioned, because the world today talks about secularism quite a lot, especially in our country, where the religiosity is completely forgotten, and there is an understanding that more or less secularism means you don't focus on how to say it, God consciousness or Krishna consciousness. That is accepted as secularism today, and Prabhupada always spoke against this. And then Prabhupada also emphasized this point: ultimately the purpose of human life is only self-realization, nothing else. Rest every activity we are doing in this world is very temporary in nature and ultimately futile. And then also the leaders of the society should be able to guide the people under them towards the worship of Lord Vishnu or Lord Krishna. So these were points again and again emphasized by Prabhupada in all his teachings, all his lectures, in his books, etc., which we can see that being practiced very much by Prithu Maharaj in this chapter. Another point Prabhupada makes in the next sloka after this is the king and the citizen should both be Krishna conscious. So he's very clearly emphasizing it is not only about the king. And naturally, we know that when the king or the leader is conscious about the Lord, mostly the citizens also follow suit. So otherwise, both of them will be doomed to lower species of life after death. So Prabhupada very clearly mentions both the leader as well as the followers should be conscious of the Lord, or they should be doing their activities in devotional service of the Lord. Otherwise, all their good fortune is finished and they'll be doomed. And in Bhagavad Gita, in the same purport, Prabhupada again emphasizes this through this verse from Bhagavad Gita: Yat karosi yat asnasi, yat juhosi dadadi yat tapasyasi kaunteya, tat kurushama darpanam. So whatever one is doing, whatever, whether you do something, whether you eat something, or whatever you are going in to give in charity, penances, etc., everything should be done in the consciousness of Krishna all the time. And it should always be for the satisfaction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This is the ultimate teaching. As you all know, Prabhupada emphasizes again and again. Without this, all the other activities done in this material world is absolutely useless. And Prabhupada always mentions Ashrama eva hi kevalam. So it's only an effort ultimately, and it doesn't lead to any result. And that is spoken by Srila Prabhupada again and again. And here we can understand this through some of the examples again. The leadership of Yudhishthira Maharaj, how it was, how positive in nature it was, because he was very much how to say it, empowered by the Lord, by Lord Krishna himself, and then he was also ruling the country in line with the instructions of the scriptures, and also with the support of elevated Brahmanas. And then because of this, the country became very, very prosperous. All the citizens were very happy under the rule of Maharaj. And this is not just Bharatvarsha as we understand, or India, but it was the whole world where there was peace and prosperity everywhere. And before that, we could also see, although it was a time of Lord Krishna, when Hastinapura was ruled by Duryodhan, how bad the situation of the citizens were. Because here, in a way, Duryodhana also said the same thing, Yat karosi yat asnasi, but not considering God. When he said, Tat Kurusha Mada Arpanam, he said, Mada is me, So do everything in consciousness of me. That was the approach of Duryodhana. And he never listened to anybody, but, his own whims and fancies. And we understand that how the people were unhappy under the rule. So it's very easy to understand these aspects when we read our scriptures and understand multiple personalities. When some of them are focused on the Lord, and then when they rule the country or the world, there was prosperity and happiness everywhere. But when they were away from the rules prescribed by the Shastras and the Lord, and they also made everybody unhappy, and finally they themselves also are doomed. So whatever Prabhupada says, when the king and citizen should be both Krishna conscious, otherwise they'll be doomed. So this we can see very clearly from the life of Duryodhan. Now we see glorifications of devotees in this chapter going ahead, where Prithu Maharaj is glorifying the Brahmanas and the devotees. in some of the verses. So he glorifies the Brahmanas as carrying the lords in their hearts. As we know that Brahmanas and Vaishnavas, in whatever activities they do, they carry the Lord in their hearts. So Prabhupada mentioned in many cases, there was not a moment in my life where I forgot Krishna. So this statement, when Srila Prabhupada gives, it is such a striking statement because, as we know, he was in this material world, and he was also into his own business and many activities, and he had many challenging situations within his family also. And this is also before the independence of India, when he was a young man, where the what you call it, world war was happening. Many tough moments were there, but Prabhupada mentions later on in one of his lectures, very with so much of confidence, that there was not a moment in my life when I forgot Krishna. So this came as a such a striking statement because like persons like me, although we try to be in Krishna consciousness, listen to many discourses, attend temple, every all these activities are done, but still I realize that there are less moments in time on a daily basis where we literally remember the Lord. So some of the teachings we can understand here is Krishna resides in the heart of pure devotee all the time, and our aspiration should be to reach that kind of purity, which is possible only through pure devotional service. And serving pure devotees superior to directly serving the Lord. This is another important point which Srila Prabhupada mentioned in almost all the lectures he has been giving. For us, since we are contaminated by this material energy in various ways, it is not possible for us to directly serve the Lord. And then it is possible to serve the pure devotees of the Lord in various ways, like our Guru Maharaj or the senior Vaishnavas. It will empower us to finally, hopefully one day, getting to serve the Supreme Lord also. And this is a verse we know from Guru Ashtakam, Srila Prabhupada, which mentioned in again many places, Yasya Prasada Bhagavad Prasado. By making Guru or a pure Vaishnava happy, only the Lord will become happy. That is the only way. This was also emphasized by Prabhupada. So when this point can also be in a way very beautifully understood with the mood of Lord Krishna himself. How he showed this to the world, even for the Lord himself, he in his humble behavior or his teaching to this world, he proved how important it is to worship a pure devotee of the Lord. So here we all know the pastime of Sudama, when he was in abject poverty, and finally he gets a chance to visit Sri Krishna when he was a king of Dwaraka. So with a lot of hesitation, he comes over there, and then he gets a great opportunity to meet the Lord in person. And the way the Lord behaved in front of his friend is how to say it, it's extremely heartwarming. And then this in a way proves how Lord's mood is. So he was running towards Sudama, and he received him with great affection, and he made him sit on his own throne. Generally, no king in this world will ever do that. The throne is given to anybody, even including one's own son. Usually, they won't allow to sit. But Lord here gave the seat of the throne of the Lord himself to Sudama to sit, and then to almost to the shock of everybody, he started washing the feet of Sudama, and this pure, or to say it, water or tirtham emanating from the feet of the pure Vaishnava, he then took it on his own head, and then he also gave it to everybody else around. So here, what we can understand from the example of the Lord himself is the importance of always respecting Vaishnavas and never offending them. And then all the opulence or all the development or advancement in spiritual life completely depends upon pleasing the pure devotees of the Lord. So these are some of the learnings we can take from here. Another striking feature we understand from this is the absolute humility of Prithu Maharaj, how his behavior was in spite of him being a empowered personality from the Lord himself. So though he was empowered by the Lord himself, he's talking always with humility. So he was very much appreciated by his citizens always for all the wonderful activities he has been doing, or the way he has been ruling the country. But his approach was, or his response to it was, "I'm just doing my duty," And this we can always see in across all the great Vaishnavas, that that humility, is exemplified. We can see it from the life of Guru Maharaj. Whenever this question is asked to Guru Maharaj, in spite of all these physical problems you have, how do you continue to serve the Lord and the devotee so much? So Guru Maharaj always says that I'm just trying to please my Guru, Srila Prabhupada. And in a mood, in a way, he's indicating that I never have the capability to, fully satisfy Prabhupada. But we can understand that he has even gone much, much, much beyond the instructions of Srila Prabhupada and achieved much, much more. And then we are blessed to be under the protection of such a great Vaishnava. And this can also be exemplified by many other lives of the Lord in the form of Lord Ramachandra himself, how he was an ideal king and how he obeyed the orders of his father. And then on the same day of his coronation as the king, he decides to leave all the opulences and go and live in the forest. And it is mentioned in Ramayana that while the Lord was walking, his feet, his feet is so soft and so beautiful and so supple that even when the feet is massaged by Mother Sita, it used to become red. So that is a kind of softness he had. With that feet, he was walking through the entire forest, where it was filled with pebbles and various difficulties. So that was a life exemplified by Lord Ramachandra. Then we see the same approach by the devotees of the Lord also. Yudhishthira Maharaj, whenever he was ruling, he always felt that he's unqualified to rule. And in fact, he believed that he was responsible for the Kurukshetra war. And then he was always lamenting all the time. And he thought that he's not qualified to rule. In spite of his complete how to say it, focus on dharma. And then we all understand that how the citizens were very happy under his rule. And Srila Prabhupada, being a pure devotee of the Lord, also showed it through his own example, how one has to be humble. So he always said, the greater the devotee, the more humble he is. So once a question was asked to Srila Prabhupada by one of the persons from the press, whether he's God. So the question was, are you God? So Prabhupada immediately responded saying that, no, I am not God, I am a servant of God. But then he thought for a moment and he said that, I'm not a servant of the God, a servant of the God is no normal or a small thing. I'm just trying to be a servant of the God. So that was the humility. And we all know that how empowered Acharya, what an empowered Acharya he was, and then how he could spread the name of the Lord across the whole globe. In spite of that, he showed absolute humility all the time. So some of the practical understandings from these elevated personalities including the Lord himself as are gratitude is the most important quality, but not pride. So even if one is understood to be empowered like Srila Prabhupada, they still remain as the servants of the God. And whenever we are in a position to lead anything, the actual position of us is not actually leadership, it is actually service. So few of the things we understand from the humility here. So it's a very interesting, how to say it, story or a small incident Srila Prabhupada was mentioning in terms of humility. So he's saying in the olden days, it was very common for the kings in our country to keep something called a vidushak or a vidushi. He calls him a kind of joker, And this we can see in many cases like Tenali Rama, to some extent the life of Akbar and Birbal, where there'll be one associate of the king who will almost behave like a joker, but this person will have very close association with the king all the time. And generally, Srila Prabhupada is mentioning this is being done to have some entertainment for the king, but also to ensure that the king is living in humility to some extent, because such personalities had such a close relationship with the king that they had the power or the freedom to tell whatever they want to tell to the king. So one instance you were saying, Srila Prabhupada was mentioning, once in West Bengal, there was a person called, he was a very well-known kind of a joker, and he was appointed by the king, called Gopal. So one day the king asked Gopal, Gopal, what is the difference between an ass and you? So what is the difference between a donkey and you? So without battling his eyelid, immediately what he did was, he was standing near the king and immediately measured his distance from the king up to where he is standing. Then he told the king, "Sir, it is just 3.5 feet." So, so here, I mean, it is exactly an insult to the king, saying that the difference between the king and him was just 3.5 feet. And the king enjoyed this because these personality had such relationship with them, and also kings could use such people to stay in humility. And Prabhupada mentions that this was a how to say it, mood also shown by our Lord Krishna himself when he was in Dwarka, because he was getting completely or many times defeated by other gopas in fighting or in different playing activities, or he was being controlled by Srimati Radharani all the time, because Radharani was ordering many times, Krishna is not allowed to enter where I am sitting, things like that. And then similarly, we see that in many of the pastimes, the senior gopis could make Krishna dance according to whatever they want. So humility is a quality which is displayed by the Lord himself, whether he comes in his complete full incarnation as Lord Krishna himself, or in the form of avatars like Prithu Maharaj, or in any other incarnation like Lord Ram. This is a very big learning for us as Vaishnavas. And then what is the real purpose of life is another point which is coming up in this chapter. So as we understand, Prithu Maharaj emphasizes that sense gratification is not the goal of human life, but human life is meant for austerity and moving towards spiritual realization. Here, Prabhupada mentions about one of the slokas where Rishabhadev is talking to his sons about the importance of not spending time on satisfying one's senses. Rather than that, he's mentioning about the importance of how to say it, austerity, and then also focusing on understanding of the God. So here in the chapter 27 sloka also talks about in detail. So it says that, my dear respectable ladies and gentlemen, so Prithu Maharaj is addressing the his people here. 1 second, I'll just move this. So my dear responsible ladies and gentlemen, according to the authoritative statements of Shastra, there must be a supreme authority who is able to award the respective benefits of our present activities. Otherwise, why should there be persons who are unusually beautiful and powerful both in this life and the life after death? So here he is indicating everything is awarded by the Lord, because we see in this material world there are many personalities who are extremely powerful in many ways, and then also physically in the appearance also very beautiful, but at the same time we see others are not able to enjoy that even with physical attraction or beauty or the way they lead their lives. So in a way, here Prithu Maharaj is indicating that everything is awarded by the Lord only. So whatever we get is only through the Lord. So further understanding this, human life is never equal to animal life, because as you all know, animals and humans are pretty much similar in many of their activities of eating, sleeping, mating, defending, etc. But we are differentiating ourselves by having the Brahma Jigyasa, or moving towards the Lord. So all the work, whatever welfare work we generally see in the world, is only done in the consciousness of material upliftment. But the real welfare work will happen only when everybody is in Krishna consciousness. And this is a point Srila Prabhupada mentioned it so many ways in his teachings. And as we all know, economic development alone cannot satisfy us in any way. But however, the entire world is only working and focusing on this aspect of economic development, and we know that this is not helping anybody in any way. And Prabhupada further mentioned that modern civilization is, I mean, he defined it as polished animalism. This is also very easy to understand, especially in the political circles of the world or the so-called corporate activities. So everything is polished, but inside, I mean, they may be wearing a very nice suit, very nice dress, etc., but inside it's all animal behavior. And another point which is very making it very difficult for the world is no spiritual learning, whether through education in the schooling systems or in general in the society. There is not system available to train people on spiritual understanding. Because of this, we know that the entire world is always in anxiety all the time, and all the time there is a possibility of war, and then that also pushes people and countries into depression in various ways, whether it is economic problems or whether it is problem related to health. Today we know that most of the cities in the world, there is not even clean air to breathe. All these things are happening continuously. So further moving ahead, so here we further see how Prithu Maharaj behaved as an ideal administrator. So many of the characteristics shown by Prithu Maharaj were protecting the citizens properly, and then engaging the earth or Mother Earth in enough agricultural activities all the time, protection of the cows, and respect towards Vaishnavas and Brahmanas. And his approach was do not exploit it in any way, everywhere. So use to the extent it is required, and considering the requirement of the people around. And he very much behaved or followed the Vedic model, where we talk about simple living and high thinking. So these words have become only in the books in the today's world. Further, this was illustrated by Prithu Maharaj. So when the earth withhold the rains in the previous chapters, as we saw, so he did not exploit the world in a responsible way. So whatever was required, he was taking it up in a regulated way, and in a way he was milking the earth very much like milking a cow, also through protection. And one very big understanding in this chapter is his father, King Verna, is mentioned by the Brahmanas as being delivered. So because of his most auspicious Krishna conscious or consciousness on serving the Lord and the Brahmanas, it was very clearly mentioned that his father, King Verna, as we know, who was leading a totally irreligious and abominable life, was delivered from the hellish condition. So this comes as very clear proof that if anybody is there in a family who is in devotional service of the Lord, all their previous personalities or previous predecessors will be delivered and they'll be taken care. And then here we can see that some of the points are like, ecological crisis is always coming from the greed. And nature in general always will respond to dharmic activities. So if the activities are by a king or a leader is happening, as per the instructions of the Shastras, then the nature also responds accordingly all the time. So another point we will see here is the Supreme Personality of Godhead never leaves the company of the devotees. Although the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Ananta, is another sloka from this same chapter. Ananta eats through the fire sacrifice offered in the name of different demigods. He does not take as much pleasure in eating through fire as he does in accepting offerings through the mouths and of the learned sages and devotees. For he does not leave the association of devotees. So here the understanding is, although whatever we are offering to demigods also through various sacrifices, the ultimate result goes only to the Lord. But the Lord is not having so much of pleasure in accepting that in comparison to this association with the or his presence with the pure devotees of himself. So here Lord mentions that Naham tishtami vaigunthe yoginam hridayeshuva tatra tishtami narada yatra gayanti madbhakta. So here Lord says that I am not staying in Vaikuntha or even in the hearts of the yogis, but I remain where my devotees engage in glorifying my activities. So here it is to be understood that the Supreme Personality of Godhead never leaves his company with the devotees. Generally, in the material world, this is very difficult to understand, but the Lord is categorically stating it, and this is also demonstrated by all the pure Vaishnavas in this world, whether it is Srila Prabhupada, whether it is Srila Guru Maharaj, or many other leaders, Vaishnava leaders from ISKCON. Even towards the last moment of their lives, they showed in many, many, many ways that Lord is present along with them all the time. So the vision we can take from the teachings of Prithu Maharaj is political affairs. Although many political affairs need to happen in this world all the time, it can be spiritual all the time. That is all possible. So Prithu Maharaj very much demonstrated this. Administration can be, so the administration of the people or whatever activities can be done as a devotion to the Lord. Leadership can be very much pure, and at the same time, in spite of all these elevated things, the power can be handled in a very humble way. And then whatever prosperity or the opulences we aim at, it can be done in a very dharmic way. So these are some of the important points we understand from this chapter under the instructions from Prithu Maharaj. And the chapter is also in a way answering the question on the crisis, why most of the governments in this world fail continuously in many, many, many ways. And this is only because the leadership is completely disconnected from the God consciousness. So in this context, we look at this sloka, Adha Pumbaya Dvijasreshta, Varnashrama Vibhagasha, so Anushtidasya Dharmasya Samsiddhir Haridoshanam. So the perfection of all the duty in all the responsibilities we try to fulfill, the perfection is only when we try to please Lord Hari, or if we manage to please Lord Hari. And this is understood through the life of Prithu Maharaj and through his instructions very clearly. So with this, I will stop the class here. Maybe we could listen to any inputs. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody has any question or comments? Okay, so there's no question. So I think wonderful session, Rajeshwar Prabhu. I think it's very, very relevant to today's scenario also, where all the people are so much dissatisfied with their respective governments, and their governments are getting thrown and new governments being put, and people are still same, and year after year, and decades after decades, people just remain dissatisfied because they are not they are not keeping the God in the center of their ruling. Their goal is somehow to how to launder the money from Praja, but they are not ready to commit themselves to this thing. And you already told that how Srila Prabhupada told about the president, and we also remember that Prabhupada has written to he wanted to present to Indira Gandhi as well, how the parliamentarians should be, how much they should be trained in Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Dharma, and all those kind of things. He had so many points for the rulers, but unfortunately it didn't happen. But I think we, being as a practicing devotees, it's very, very good that our conduct and our life should be molded in such a way that we lead a meaningful life, spiritual life, along with our material needs. As you said that we cannot ignore our material life as well, but at the same time, if we give Krishna as center, then Krishna helps us to lead a life which is at the end of the life, which will make us to go to the higher destination. So thank you, Prabhu. Wonderful. I think you covered many important points. Prabhupada's purports you covered. Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna. Thank you so much, Dr.
Swami Prabhu, you want to add anything?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Yeah, thank you for the wonderful session, Prabhu. Especially on the points like how a king should rule and how the praja should reciprocate with the king. And especially as Prabhu mentioned, like how the government is failing and is not able to do the needful and make the praja happy. Thank you for all your efforts on this, Prabhu. I think anybody want to share their points apart from this? Or
Prabhu, if it is okay, I will exit because we had a yatra which is planned immediately. You have to leave if it is not a problem.
Yeah, sure, Prabhu, no problem. I just wanted to announce that tomorrow we have a seva of prasadam serving.
Yes.
So